Hi, and welcome back to ZSRx. Listen, we need to start talking about the textbook situation, as uncomfortable as that makes some folks, because the textbook publishers are really driving the whole digital publishing thing. It's a gigantic industry. The top publishers in the world are um, huge. Uh, these revenues are in the millions. 8,000 million is $8 billion. It's not a defense contractor size, but publishers are big and have a big slice of the book buying pie, if you will. Recent estimates are that textbook sales for both K 12 and higher education are estimated at over $13 billion in the U.S. So those forces are fighting madly to defend that market share, and they're doing it often enough with some innovative publishing tactics. And it's good. Digital textbooks have really helped the matter. So have a lot of hardworking booksellers and librarians and faculty. This chart divides the textbook buying world into two distinct eras, I guess you'd call it. Pre and post iPad. I'm just making a number and calling it from 1834 to 2010. Uh, Textbook buying was relatively hard for your average student. Textbooks went out of print. They went out of stock. Faculty would order different editions. Sometimes the latest edition wasn't quite available. Uh, really, up to only a few years ago, the multiple formats confused the issue with new versus used versus digital versus rental, and they were still, you know, pretty expensive. Um, a lot of those problems were solved, sort of as a happy result of e-books in a way. Books, textbooks included, don't really go out of print anymore, and you can get them immediately if you need to. You don't have to wait 2 weeks or halfway through the semester by the time you get your textbooks anymore. And if the bookstore doesn't have them, chances are good someone else does. And honestly, if you're not happy with a print version of your book, or you're not happy with an ebook version of your book, you could probably get it in either format or both formats if you can afford it. However, they're still hard to afford. Textbooks are still very expensive for most students. So when you and I went to school, the textbook situation was an expensive hassle, semester after semester. Now, it's just expensive in a sort of unsatisfying way. There are statistics, of course, I'll send you these links, but there are reports that indicate that prices of textbooks, e-textbooks included, have jumped 82% since 22. That's a lot, with the average annual cost of books and supplies growing to $1,200 per year per student. Is not much you might feel you can do about it, because you're probably like me, down in the corner somewhere of a vast organization, all of whom are worried about the textbook situation, but it can be tough to solve if you're not deeply involved in the publishing world. I am, sort of, and have noticed that lots of things can be done if you pay attention to what undergraduates are thinking about these days. If articles are the new books, and bookstores are the new libraries, and librarians are the new editors, we can just make our own textbooks, is what I'm saying. And I'm walking around. I'll, of course, send you my menu, but we can create our own textbooks in a way that is cost effective. I'll talk about the pricing model that I have devised, but that's just me. Meanwhile, I wanted to show you some real live examples of, I guess you'd call it the textbook situation. In 2009, a faculty member at Wake Forest and a colleague created a traditional bound book called Strategic Management, Value Creation, Sustainability, and Performance. It's still available today on Amazon.com in print for $130, which is, maybe you might think about it, about average for a textbook in an upper level class. That's a pretty fair price, I guess you'd say. And yet, $130 is pretty expensive. Why is it expensive? It's expensive because, frankly, paper and ink are expensive now, and shipping is expensive, and storage is expensive. So this particular faculty member, Dr. Paige West, wasn't really satisfied with the results of this. I guess I'd call it the sales of this book, and went to some bother to retrieve his rights to publish the second edition, and he did it himself strictly as an ebook on Amazon.com. And the happy result is it's essentially the same book. It's updated, of course. It's got nearly the same cover, and yet it's in a different format. And significantly, it's at a different price, $19.99 versus $130. Is a fair price point for Dr. West, for Amazon.com, for students everywhere. So in a way, we are getting there. And what is helping is that format change. We can do that for free too and call it an open access textbooks. We have a few on our publishing platform at Wake, and our students are able to consume required digital content for free if the author is gracious enough to render $0 as a price point. There are other options, these quasi-open textbooks. Have you ever seen Boundless.com? Pretty interesting, where they will search the open access availability of for-profit, I'll call them, titles, and come up with content that is similar or similar enough. So some students will buy, will get their reading list and go online and get some sticker shock based on the price of the actual books. Go to Boundless.com, put in the title or the ISBN, and Boundless will go to the bother of scouring the available content and finding what they say is equivalence and producing it back as an ebook to that student with a cover, I assume, and other nice things for, again, $19.99 instead of $230, or instead of $0. Might take a little while. It's a little bit convenient. We hope students don't, in the meantime, go to boundless.org, which is sort of a, Christian Mingle type deal. So anyway, there are other solutions floating out there to solve the textbook situation, and they include subsidies. Wouldn't it be nice if you could have your course materials included in tuition, or prepaid, I would say, as a as your meal plan is. That might allow some institutions to actually lower tuition if fees go up. So, we are thinking about it, and I would contend that we are getting there with digital publishing. Of course, digital publishing, open access content is probably the only way to go. That's my cue. I'll be sure and load you up with these charts and links, and we can talk a lot more about textbooks and what we're up against. Thanks a lot.